I think the release of the A7 IV represents one of the most disrespectful things I've ever seen a camera company do to its loyal audience. And at the end of this video, I would love you to make a comment and let me know if you can think of somebody or some company that's done worse. Now, first of all, it's not about the camera itself. I do understand people's disappointments. No open gate, no 4K 120 full frame, no 6K video options, and other manufacturers have many of these features at a cheaper price and in cheaper cameras. With the Sony cameras, we are going to pay a Sony tax. They are at the top of the mirrorless market, and you're going to pay a little bit more for a similar set of features. The other manufacturers are throwing everything they can at their cameras to try to drag in that market share or get more market share. That's just how it's going to be. But if we look at the upgrades from the A7 IV, which is one of my most used cameras of all time, I think this is a no-brainer upgrade, and it might be the first camera that I actually pre-order. To start with, looking at the video, we got better rolling shutter in 4K. We have 4K 60 frames per second full frame. We've got better autofocus with the AI features and the AI chip built in to the main processor now. We've got better battery life. We have a better screen, and we have 30 frames per second in photo. Those are all massive upgrades from the A7 IV, and I think for a general hybrid shooter, they are well worth the upgrade. The biggest problem I have with the release of this new camera is Sony not looking after their most loyal customers and prioritizing the sales of new cameras. Now, we've seen this over the years. We saw this with the A7 III, and 2 years later, the A7C came out, and it had a number of features that the more expensive A7 III didn't have. We saw this with the FX30, and then the A6700 came out about 10 months later. It had the AI chip and the more advanced autofocus system. We've seen with the A1 over the years, it's missing all kinds of features that the less expensive cameras had for ages, even though that was still supposed to be their flagship. Now, some of this is hardware, but a lot of this is software, and a lot of this is Sony just not prioritizing those older cameras and looking after customers that already have bought those cameras. Now, I don't think any of those things are necessarily a deal breaker, and it wouldn't end my relationship with Sony, but I think this new release is one that for some people might make them feel that way. The Sony FX2 was released only 4 months ago. Now, this is supposed to be a cinema camera, and the core components, or many of the core components, are just made up of the old A7 IV parts. That includes the screen and the 33 megapixel sensor. These are two of the worst features of the A7 IV for video. That screen is a 1 million dot screen, which is not very accurate and not very high resolution. And the 33 megapixel sensor, which is excellent as far as detail goes, has horrendously bad rolling shutter. And you really have to watch the way you handle that camera, or you're going to get jello everywhere. They have taken those two main features, they put them in the FX2, they've given it active cooling and the AI chip. But other than that, it is basically just an A7 IV. Then 4 months later, they released the A7 V, which in almost every way is a better video camera. Other than the active cooling and possibly some of the software features in the FX2, the A7 V is a no-brainer better video camera. You're going to get better rolling shutter, you're going to get 4K 60, you're going to get a higher resolution screen, and I think most people buying the FX2, if they knew the A7 V was coming, they wouldn't have bought the FX2. Now, that might not be the case for a few people, but I think the overwhelming majority, that's going to be the case. And I think about it this way. Imagine you had a friend at Sony, and they knew what was coming out. The FX2 came out, and they knew 4 months later that the A7 V was going to come out. And you said, oh, I'm thinking about buying the FX2, but I'm not sure. It just seems to be old A7 IV parts and the rolling shutter. I don't know. Is this really the best they're going to offer? If they're your friend, they're going to tell you to hold on, maybe wait on that. There's almost no way that you would suggest they buy an FX2 unless they need the active cooling and it's a camera that's just going to be on stick somewhere. Now, I think Sony can fix their issue with the FX2 now going forward. That should be a $2,000 camera, which would make it completely relevant, but that doesn't help the people that have already bought the camera, and it almost makes it worse. So if your friend at Sony was going to tell you, hey, hold off on that FX2, there might be something coming that might be a little bit better for you, is it really something that should have been released and encouraged your loyal customers to buy? I genuinely don't think so, and it is absolutely my biggest disappointment of this A7 V release.